Reflection maps can be added to a material to add an extra level of realism to a shiny object. In this video, we'll take a look at some of your options when adding reflections to a surface. I'll be using a file named Material Map Branch. You can find it in the Working Files folder. Now, your choices for adding reflection maps aren't limited to simply using pictures or images as a means to create a reflection. A bitmap image can and will work just fine when wanting a quick and easy method of reflecting, and we'll show you that in just a moment. But there's also another map type that you can use when wanting or needing an added level of believability and realism. It doesn't use an image, it actually uses a mathematical calculation to generate its effect. Let's start with first using a basic bitmap image to create a scene reflection. With the material editor open, I'll now turn on Active Shade in my perspective view. If you need more on how that works, check out the chapter on rendering a little later on in the title. To get things in place, I'll go to the upper left-hand side of the view, clicking on Perspective. In the menu, I'll then choose Extended Viewports, then Active Shade. Okay, back in the material editor, let's apply a gray ball to the object in our scene. We'll then want to change the body color to medium gray. We can do that by opening up the color swatch and changing the value, the last ramp on the right, to 100. When using images to create your reflections, you'll many times get the best results when using a picture that's a little bit busy. By that I mean there's a lot going on in the image. A lot of variation in color or design. It's not so important that the picture looks specifically like something. It's more important that the image has a certain level of variation. Down at the bottom of the material editor, let's open up the Maps section. We'll find the reflection branch, then jump up on it, choosing a bitmap. In the Chapter 11 folder of the Working Files, let's look for an image named Sunset. When you find it, single-click on it, then hit View in the lower left-hand corner of the dialog. Here with the cloud formations and the variations in color, we should be able to get a nice effect. Take a look at that. Now we can also change angles if we need to mix things up a bit. On the right-hand side of the Coordinates category, change the W angle to 33. That simply rotates the picture around, creating a different reflection. Let's try 66 in the same field. And we'll also experiment with a value of 180. Okay, let's go ahead and take the W angle back to 0. I'll do that by right-clicking on either of its two spinners. Now, we can also vary the amount of the actual reflection. To do that, we'll have to hit Go to Parent. Back down on the branches, let's change the reflection amount from 100 to 50. Let's also see the way things would look with a value of 25. So with the lower number, the lower the amount of reflection. Let's bump that back up to 100. Okay, let's try a different picture. To change the pictures, we're going to have to get back up on the reflection branch. Go ahead. Now, if you're a little lost on where you are, look directly below the horizontal icons on the left. You'll see the name of the map branch, that being Reflection. Down in the Bitmap Parameter section below, let's now click on that long Bitmap button. It ends with the word Sunset. This time, let's find and view a map named Meadow. The different levels of lightness and darkness should make this one a good choice. Let's go ahead and load it into place. Okay, now with this one, we're actually picking up quite a few of the details of the picture, which is nice if the object is supposed to be reflecting a meadow, but if it's not, it kind of spoils the effect. What we can do is adjust the clarity of the image by using a setting on the map called Blur Offset. You'll find it in the Coordinates category down at the bottom in the middle. Now it doesn't take much. Let's change the blur offset to 0.5. The object looks kind of nice for maybe frosted glass, but the blur offset for our example in creating a reflection is just too high. Let's bump that value down to 0.1. Still a little bit too blurry, let's try 0.05. There we go. Now we can also maybe take the amount of the reflection down a bit. Let's go back to our parent and change the reflection amount to 70. Maybe a little less reflective still, let's try 35. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now let's go back to the diffuse color swatch and we'll change it to a dark, rich purple. I'll do that by taking out the green and lowering the value. Let's also adjust our specular highlights. We'll take both the specular level and glossiness to 75. Now, back down on the map, we can also use only a portion of the image if we want. Let's reopen the reflection branch. In the Bitmap Parameters category, on the right-hand side, let's click on View Image. Take note of the red box that surrounds the picture. This gives you the opportunity of cropping the image by grabbing one of the handles and changing the size of the red box. Let's do this. I'm going to grab the handle at the bottom middle, pulling it up to where the clouds meet the trees. Back in the Material Editor, just to the left of that View Image button we clicked on, activate Apply. Okay, let's move the image to the far left side so we can see the results in our active shade. Having cropped the picture, the only part of the image that we're now using as a reflection is the skyline. Watch the difference in the way the surface looks if we instead crop using only the trees. And compare that to using only the grass and weeds. So if you've ever loaded a picture on a branch and decide you don't want to use the complete picture for whatever its purpose is, you can always crop it down to a customized size. Let's go ahead and close that viewing window and we'll turn off Apply. Now, if you're not really sure that the reflection map is adding all that much, you can always go back and see how things would look without the reflection. We'll click on Go to Parent, heading back to the branches, then turn off the reflection map. I think in this instance, the reflection map is definitely adding a nice touch. Now, if you're needing to instead create a true and accurate reflection of the actual scene around an object, you can move away from using an image and instead use the mathematical formula that I was mentioning earlier. It comes on a very special map type called Ray Trace. Let's first remove the bitmap image from the reflection channel. Now you can do that a couple of different ways. You can either right-click directly on the name, choosing Clear, or you can simply drag any of the None buttons directly on top of that map. Okay, with the reflection branch now cleared off, let's go back into our browser to add a map. This time, we'll head further down the list looking for Ray Trace. When you find it, you can simply double-click on its name. The reflection that's been created can much more easily be seen if we simply unhide an object that's been out of play. To the left-hand side of the Material Editor, I'll put my mouse in the viewport. From there, I'll right-click, choosing Unhide All. This will bring up a circular floor object that I've applied a checkerboard material to. To get the object rendering our view, we'll temporarily close Active Shade, then reopen it. Now with the floor in the scene, you can see the automatic ray trace reflection that's being created. You know, we might be able to see that a little better if we actually scale the object up a bit. Let's close our Active Shade, zoom out a tad, and we'll scale the container in the Z direction. Okay, now we can go back and reactivate the Active Shade. You'll notice that the controls in a ray trace map look completely different than a bitmap image. Let's lower the amount of the reflection by going back to our parent and changing the reflection amount to 35. Why don't we also see if we can't put a ray trace on the floor? I'll select a gray sample slot, then eyedrop the floor material in. Once in place, I'll add a ray trace map to its reflection branch. That's pretty nice. Now, if we want to see the container a little bit better, maybe we ought to change that color from purple to, let's say, green. Now, be aware that a ray trace reflection will take longer to render due to the math calculation that's being made. That's a lot more taxing than simply interpreting a picture. Usually, though, the wait's worth it. So there you go with a few different choices when needing to create a reflection or two in a scene. Decide on the level of accuracy and realism you're needing, then choose the best map type for the job. Bitmap or Ray Trace, they'll both serve you well. I'll go ahead and save this out as Material Map Branch Reflection Completed if you'd like to go in for a look.